Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships for our Tuesday edition video, being an upgrading commander build video on the Venezia, as I promised, since I did not do that on Saturday. So we're going to look at the armor, talk about the ship, upgrades, modules, commander, skills, all that type of stuff. So let's dig into it. So first, talking about what type of ship is Venezia as a heavy cruiser. Is she a browsing cruiser? Is she a sniping cruiser? Or is she a medium range cruiser? And I feel like I just say this so many times with a lot of cruisers in the game, but in my opinion, Venezia is this mid-range cruiser. And when I say that, I'm probably referencing 12 to 15 kilometers-ish. That's why I need to throw my commander back on, because 12.4 kilometers is technically ranged by sea. So often with these type of ships, when you play around your concealment, it makes it much more comfortable when you need to disengage. You have really good armor scheme. You even have spaced armor scheme similar to Henry IV, the French tier 10 cruiser. So you can get away with a lot, but you just have to be mindful of the ship. Kind of long, and she does have a citadel, in which we'll talk about. So I like playing her in the medium range and then needing to kite, as you saw in yesterday's video, which will be clipped or at the end of this one. So if you want to see my 240k damage game with the build I'm going to illustrate and show to you today, you can easily do so by clicking on that in-screen icon. So anyhow, armor. Let's talk about ship. So you have 25 millimeter plating on the bow in the upper part of the stern. However, there is a difference, quite unusual for most cruisers in the game, is they have this 40 millimeter armor belt that goes all the way from the bow back to almost the entirety of the stern. It actually goes from a 40 to a 60, and then you just have a vulnerable 25 millimeter stern. So not many ships actually have this in the game at all. I can't think of another one off the top of my head thinking about it. So it kind of allows you to do some things that normally wouldn't be able to do in other cruisers, like, you know, maybe a destroyer's trying to pin you and he's shooting too low, can't get through, or allows you to bounce more things than what players or enemy, cruisers or battleships think you should be able to bounce. So it comes in quite handy. The upper armor belt of your midsection of your ship is 30 millimeter. And then the deck is also 30 millimeters. So not the standard 25 millimeter that you might just find across the board on a typical tier 10 cruiser. So this just kind of gives it, allows you to flex a little bit more perhaps than normal. I was going to break some things down here. So let's talk about, let's look at that citadel. So that citadel is an above water citadel, 165 millimeters, so pretty thick. So since it is above water, when you go out and show broadside, you do have to be very mindful of your broadside. You want to respect. Often when you do need to disengage or you need to do broadside maneuver, your exhaust smoke generator comes quite in handy. So do please keep that in mind for the safety of your crew members on your ship. Now, in terms of the gun armor, 150 millimeter, 100 millimeter, 75 millimeter, and 120 millimeter and 75. So the weakest part of your turret is kind of this back half section, not the very back, but the side and top here. So just be mindful of that. And you can actually see even on the top here, it's 75 millimeter, where the Barbet armor is 150 millimeter. So it is possible, it's easy to have your guns knocked out, especially if there's a battle cruiser or battleship that's targeting these 2 and 3 millimeter guns. So do be mindful of that. So let's talk about her modules. So she has a 203 millimeter main battery. So we have reload in the 6th slot, meaning that our reload time is 18.5 seconds. And we have, I believe we do have the gun feeder here with Luigi Sansonetti. So we can switch between our sap and armor piercing in 7.4 seconds, not taking account any type of adrenaline rush. 180 degree turn time is a comfortable 25.7 seconds. I mean, yeah, it'd be nice if it was even better, but I found it okay. It doesn't bother me. Sap shell damage, 5200, and we can buff that. and then maximum AP shell damage, 4,800. So you can do massive damage with these SAP shells, also as illustrated in yesterday's video, where you can be getting these 10, 15, 20k salvos on broadside cruisers, broadside battleships, particular superstructures, where maybe with the some German ships, and definitely a good number of Russian ships, you might have a little more difficulty pinning with this SAP, but it's good. Your hull without survivability expert is 51,800. So you have your 5 turrets, 12 secondary turrets, torpedo tubes, 2 AA mounts, and ASW mounts. Your torpedoes are very fast reloading. It's 3x3 or 3x2, excuse me. You have 3 torpedoes on the right, 2 torpedoes on the left. 71 second reload time, 13.5 kilometer torpedo range. So often, as your torpedoes are still traveling at that 56 knots, and they go max range, you're about to have your torpedoes reload again. 13,900 damage. So that is something to take note of. I mean, if you're going to yellow a target, you do have really good torp angles, but you just need to make sure that you can do the knockout blow if you're going to push in on a brawling ship. The detectability range of these torps is 1.1 kilometers, so it's better than Yodo. So it's okay. It's not the best, but it's okay. Gun firing range with the build we have is 17.1 kilometers. Note, if you have Sansonetti on your ship and you pick up a kill, then you'll extend your main battery firing range by plus 8%, which I think bumps you up to like 18.4, something like that. So that's helpful. You also do have access to spotter planes, something to keep in mind. Propulsion 38 knots with the ceramic flag, excuse me. Without it, it's 37 knots, or it's technically like 36 point something, but they rounded it up to 37 knots. So it's 38 knots, probably point something, but the game doesn't really deal with that per se. So I like running it because you are a very fast heavy cruiser, and this is 38 knots and you don't even have an engine boost. So it's quite phenomenal in my opinion. Now in terms of the build, we're going to be talking about some things. So I'm going to show you the build that I have, and I'm going to show you a build that I want to work towards and have here on the Venezia and Commander in General. So what do we have? We have main armaments modification 1. This reduces the risk of our main battery and torpedo tubes becoming incapacitated by negative 20%. The main battery torpedo tube survivability is increased by plus 50%, and our main battery and torpedo tube repair time, if they should become incapacitated, is reduced by negative 20%. So that's quite nice in my opinion. You don't need the auxiliary armaments. This ship's not about secondaries. It's not about AA. You don't need magazine modifications. Reduces the risk of your ship's magazine detonating by negative 70%, because you simply just pick up the Julie Charlie combat signal when you're playing randoms, ranked clan battles, and it completely eliminates the risk of your ship's magazine detonating. Another thing we can revisit and talk about is the spotting aircraft modification. Increases the action time of your spotting aircraft and rapid takeoff spotter consumables by plus 30%. Now this is a special upgrade in the armory, so it will cost you 17,000 coal, but with the coupon it should be around 12,500 or 750, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. So I'll come back to that and talk maybe perhaps why that might be an option. For this slot 2, really the engine room protection. As you are a heavy cruiser, you're pretty fast, but it's detrimental in my opinion to try as this type of cruiser to keep your engine and your steering gears going, reducing the risk of them being incapacitated. And if they should be incapacitated and your damage control party is on cooldown, then it's a negative 20% reduction time for them to come back up. Damage control system modification 1 reduces the risk of catching fire, risk of flooding, -5, -3% in respective forms. But no, this has been more beneficial in my opinion so far in playing Venezia. In terms of the third slot, I have elected to go for the aiming systems modification 1 upgrade. This reduces the maximum main battery shell dispersion by -7%. So basically it means you're getting a tighter horizontal and a tighter vertical shell dispersion grouping by X amount of meters. And if I remember to, I'll throw up on the bottom of the screen here what that would be with this and without this. Now, there's going to be something that's going to be coming to the game in the update 12.5 that was recently released in a dev blog, so I'll just go ahead and make mention of it. And if I just switch over to Chengmu as an example, they're going to make the smoke generator modification 1 available to the 4 exhaust smoke generators, not just the smoke generators. And they're going to take away that smoke screen dispersion time. It's -5%. That will be eliminated. And I think they reduced the consumable... No, I know they did. They reduced the consumable action time from plus 30% to... I want to say it was plus 20%, if I remember correctly. So this will become available starting in update 12.5 to those of you who are in the future watching this video. Do I think this is worth picking up on Venezia? I do. We'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about the unique upgrade, or the legendary upgrade on Venezia. Because then you can boost that smoke generator time. Right now it is at a 40-second consumable action time. But we have this, and I think they're also altering this. It's a plus 15%, but I think they're going plus 10%. I think this one's getting nerfed. But when I add it now, it goes to 46 seconds, and then you add that plus 20%, and then, this being a plus 10%. Then you get these longer lasting smokes when you build into that. So I would say that is worthwhile picking up for Venezia. It does mean you have to give up a little bit of that additional shell dispersion you have, but I think it's worthwhile, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. I don't think you need the main battery modification too. I think we're running the grease the gears on our commander. Plus 15%, so that's helping us out. So I don't view the main battery modification 2 as needed. 4 slot propulsion modification 1 all the way. Yesterday's video will just give you a clear example of why I appreciate this. We were dealing with a Shikishima, we were dealing with a Musashi, and we were utilizing our propulsion modification, and we avoided taking a lot of damage from those 460 and 510mm guns. So this helped us to live quite as long as possible until we died from the fire of a Kitakaze. So I would really prefer having this in the 4 slot here on Venezia. Some players like having steering gears modification 1 on their cruisers. Basically, it's going to reduce your rudder shift time by X amount. Yeah, it'd probably be 11 point something seconds. For myself, I don't necessarily see the value and the worth. I prefer this, and most cruiser players with Venezia are going to run the propulsion modification 1. For the 5th slot, right now, this build is one of the many options you can be running, and I'll talk more about it. But we're going for a max conceal build. Concealment system modification 1 reduces ship's tactical range by sea and by air by -10%, and also dispersion of shells fired by enemies attacking your ship plus 5%. So that means 12.4 overall concealment, in addition to having concealment on our commander. Now, this is something I like, and it's kind of a clear winner, unless you have access to the research bureau. Where they've just introduced this bad boy not too long ago, a couple two, 3 updates ago, as this update 12.4, along with a Holland unique upgrade. And this is the augmented smoke generators. So it gives you a number of smoke generators, generator consumable charges plus 2, and your smoke generator consumable cooldown time is reduced by -55%. And it's 19,200 research points. So if you don't have access to the research bureau yet, typically it means you need to have 5 tier 10 ships, and I have a separate video on that. As I'm farming some research bureau points out of my Shimakaze line, which I have ×4 reset stacked on. So if I remember to, I'll just link that video at the end too, if you want to understand research bureau a bit more when you're farming research points. So this is a legendary or unique upgrade that I would really like to have. Also, I talked about in yesterday's game, because I ran out of smokes, right? So we only have 3 smokes with the current build, and that cooldown time is 180 seconds. Now we can shorten that a little bit with the November Foxtrot. So now that comes down to 171 seconds. So if we do some wild math, That means we can take 94 seconds off. 171 minus 94 means 77 seconds, roughly, give or take, that we will have our smoke back up. And that just be so beneficial on top of being able to have 5 exhaust smoke generators. So that's nice, in my opinion. So this is something that I want to eventually run here on the Venezia. But for now, I'll just kind of highlight this build, as I'm probably taking too long. But I'll circle back and tell you what I would change for kind of the build that I want to go for. In terms of the 6 slot, the main battery modification 3, I do prefer. Main battery reload time is reduced by -12%. Main battery traverse speed, -13%. So a nerf to our turret traverse, but a buff to our main battery reload time, making it that 18.5 seconds. So we're increasing our DPM. We have a gun range of 17.1. You get a kill if Sansonetti's your commander. That's going to be buffed by +8%, which I think takes you up to the 18.4. And then you have access to spotter plane. So, I mean, yeah, we pretty much have all the range we need. And I think trying to play Venezia further, if you're talking the 17, 18 kilometers, is probably not the best. That 15 kilometer and under, I think, is kind of where she excels, 15 to 12. But to each their own. But this is what I would recommend overall here on Venezia. We've talked about the sap already. We've talked about the armor piercing. So you'll not be setting fires unless your secondary battery, which I can pull up, is going to get any chances of starting a fire at 7.7 kilometer range, a plus 5% chance of starting a fire. So that's pretty unlikely. So you're not really worried about setting fires with this. It's more of this. It's kind of weird with the sap shells. I didn't say this yesterday's video, but it feels like you are a damage farmer a little bit with Venezia, except you don't set fires. It's just this sap that slaps, especially destroyers who can get wrecked by it. Torpedoes we've talked about. The depth charges, you get 2 charges. It drops 8 bombs in a charge, so 16 in total. Reload time of 40 seconds per charge. So this isn't an air depth charges. I don't remember the proper term. It's ship based, so it means it's going to be jumping off the rear of your ship right here. So off the rear of your ship. So you don't have to worry about it being something like Friesland, Groningen, or Holland and being the front of your ship. Consumable wise, with this November Foxtrot taking place here, I'll just show without. 5-second action time on your DCP. Cooldown time 60 seconds or 57 seconds, as you saw with the November Foxtrot combat signal. Your repair party is plus 259. We throw in the India Delta combat signal. That's going to jump up to plus 310. Action time 28 seconds. Cooldown time 80 seconds. Throw in November Foxtrot 76 seconds. So I like running November Foxtrot here on Venezia. For the planes, you get either fighters or spotting aircraft. I just recommend go with spotting. Your fighters are pretty blah, as most fighters are in the game on your ship. They never prevent the first strike, and you're lucky if they prevents the second strike, depending on the health pool of the planes attacking you. Where spotting aircraft, you're always going to get benefit out of, especially if there's no CVs in the game. So I do recommend taking this. Again, we can shorten down that time of the spotting aircraft to 2 and 28 seconds versus, what was it? Was it 240? Yeah, without. So again, do recommend that. The exhaust smoke generator means that you can go full speed with smoke, and you're not going to be detected unless something's within 2 kilometers of you, or detects you with your gunfire penalty, which does that? I'm completely spacing how to see that here. It's 9 something. I think it's like 9.9. I could be mistaken. So you do want to pay attention to your gunfire penalty. Does it say here? I don't know where you see that. I thought it showed underneath here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm crazy. But it really makes this line OP. That we can get 46 seconds with the current build out of it. And then you can stop in the end of the smoke, and then you have an additional 10 seconds. So you can think of it as being like a 56-second smoke screen dispersion time in that essence, if you think of it that way. Action radius, 0.5 kilometer, and 171-second cooldown time with November Foxtrot. Otherwise, it's 180 seconds. So I do recommend running this setup. In terms of other things, this is typically what I would run straightforward just with the ship. I don't really mess with anything else. I don't really mess with these. You can take this, and then there you go. But I don't see much of a point for the other things. Your AA rating is 86. You can buff that slightly up to 87. But I don't really mess with it because it's not really an AA cruiser. Also because your AA in general sucks because you have a 4.6 kilometer firing range. So when we start looking at the statistics of the continuous damage, 189 by long range AA, which has a firing range of, medium range, 3.7 kilometers, 189. 476. So your medium range AA is the best. Your damage by long range AA is 189 with a 4.6 kilometer hit. But really your AA doesn't start firing until 4.4 kilometers because Wargaming thinks for some reason your AA shouldn't instantly activate and that the gunners need to load the guns after a plane has come within your AA range. So it's kind of a dumb thing, in my opinion. Should be instant. So with that being said, let's go to our commander. So here you can see the build I'm running thus far. We'll talk about a few different build options. Talk about a build option that I'm probably going to be going for in total here. But there's room to play around, and I would say it's probably 3 types of builds you can go off the top of my head. But we'll have to get into that here in just a moment as I take a drink here. So what would I recommend for a 10-point build starting off? I would recommend Grease the Gears to get your turret traverse down to that 25.7 seconds as discussed. With this build for now, I picked up Priority Target. We'll talk about a different skill than the Priority Target, being the Eye in the Sky. But I've taken Priority Target because I'm going to get a little hang of the ship. When ships are targeting me, get more comfortable with the angling and utilizing that 40mm belt. Which is coming in quite handy so far, I would say already. So that's what I have. But honestly, I would probably say, well, let me put it this way. If you are a player who kind of struggles a little bit with the map awareness and trying to understand what ships may be aiming at you, then I would tell you, go ahead and pick up Priority Target. If you would consider yourself a player who has decent map awareness, and you can do okay without Priority Target, then I'd say pick up Eye in the Sky. The spotting aircraft consumable cooldown time is reduced by negative 50%, and the number of spotting aircraft consumable charges is +2. So right now you can see we get 7 spotting planes. So if I go back to here, you saw that I was talking about how it reduces by 50%, so 228. So by times 0.5, 114 seconds. So that's just, you have a spotter plane back in just under 2 minutes, versus right now it's like 4 minutes almost. Well, if we take this away, right, then it bumps up to 240 seconds. So being able to have your spotting aircraft back that much sooner helps, especially if you're going to be going for these additional smokes, which I've already talked about. So if you're okay with map awareness, you can understand what ships may be targeting you for the most part, I'd say give it Priority Target and take Eye in the Sky. And I might redistribute the skills here and do that, but we'll see. 6-point Commander. What I've done, I already had Sansonetti built up a bit beyond a 10-point Commander. So this could be up to you as for a 6-point Commander if you want to pick up the Adrenaline Rush first, which is going to give you faster reload time. So then as your health starts falling, your 18.5 is going to turn to 18, 17.5, 17 seconds. But for survivability purposes, I'd probably, with the 6-point Commander, with how Venezia is, I'd say just go ahead and pick up Superintendent skill first. It gives you the additional smoke screen, so rather than having 2, you get 3. Rather than having 4 spotter planes, you get 5. And rather than having 3 heals, you get 4 heals. So this makes me feel more comfortable that this is essentially, I'd call it a defensive skill, and a little bit of the offensive in terms of the spotting aircraft and being able to reach out and strike ships further away. So 6-point skill, I'd go here, here, and here. And then for now, I would say Concealment Expert and as a 10-point skill. Ship detectability range, negative 10%, giving us that max conceal of 12.4, which I have been enjoying here on Venezia. So after this, for 13-point commander, I'd say pick up Adrenaline Rush. And then for a 14-point commander, because there are going to be times, as illustrated in yesterday's video, you can switch from the SAP to the armor piercing, and you can slap broadside cruisers, as we slapped at poor Amalfi and wrecked him. So having that flexibility, I would say, is quite nice in my opinion, so that's why I have it as a 14-point skill here. Now, multiple different things you can do. So you can see we were 17 points. This is probably when things are going to start varying from person to person. Then you might say, hey, I want the additional survivability, which I would totally agree with you. Have that 56,300 hit point pool versus that 51,800 hit point pool. It means you're going to be lasting longer in the game and make more damage. If I had this yesterday in that game, probably could have lived long enough to kill the Minotaur. Maybe. And I think that would have been helpful, but it would have been more helpful if I killed him sooner, but I think we sort of lost the game. So having that larger health bar as a cruiser is quite nice. And then you might say, maybe for your last 4 points, you pick up the top grade gunner, which increases the main battery reload speed while an enemy ship is within your ship's standard detectability range, changes to ship detectability caused by firing main guns, fires on board, and other combat events are not taken into account. So that 12.4, what we have right now. So you might say, I would say for a standard 21-point commander build on Venezia, you're needing that priority target, you're needing that low map awareness. I would say that this is a good 21-point build to run on your Venezia commander. Now, there are other things to take into account here. Because things are going to be changing between our commander and also our upgrades, right? So I talked about the augmented smoke generators. If you take this, I didn't say this, but you have to give up your concealment. So as an example, I'll just do this to be nice. If I demounted this, our concealment would be 13.7 kilometers. So not so hot per se in that regard. If you still want something like this, it does mean you're going to get a more use out of your top grade gunner because it's got the permanent effect of the negative 10% secondary battery reload time. I don't think I even said what the skill does. It reduces your main battery reload time by negative 8%. So then, now that ships are within 13.7 kilometers of you, then you're going to have a faster reload time. And how fast? So if we said it was 18.5 seconds, I'll do the math on the fly. Oops, wrong one. 8. No, I did that wrong. 18.5 times 0.08 means you're going to shave essentially 1.5 seconds off. So that dropped you down to 17.02, technically speaking. 18.5 minus 1.48, 17.2 seconds without taking adrenaline rush into account. So that's actually quite nice, I would say, in my opinion. And then instead of priority target, then you're going back and forth, priority target or eye in the sky. The other thing to take into account is that there are players who like to run the where did you go? This one, heavy HE and SAP shells. You get a greater alpha with your semi-armored piercing shells. So it goes up by plus 10%. So you can see artillery is ticked to 90. So rather than having SAP shells that do, let me see here. Where did it go? I'm blind. Help. 5,200 damage. They jump up to 5,720. And that's per gun. You have 15 guns in total on the Venezia. So yeah, so that's quite spicy, increasing your maximum damage that you can do with these sap shells. So there are players who run that. So then maybe you're doing something like that, and then your concealment becomes 15.8 kilometers, and that's still having concealment here as a 4-point skill. But that means you're giving up your survivability expert, or you would do something like this. So it's just like a handful of things you can do here with Venezia. So let me just go ahead. Let me go ahead and reset, redistribute the skills. Yeah, we're easily commander XP. So let's see. One build option, I would say. Let's just run without that for a minute. If you want to go for a very standard Venezia build, then I could see it being this. Or if you're not too worried about gun feeder, you could take the incoming fire alert just to give you a heads up when shells are coming in. This is really going to revolve around as you as a player, but this build is what I would say would be the very standard first build option for Venezia. So I need to wrap this video up. I'm going really long-winded here. The next build option means you're going to be giving up something. You could forsake concealment in its entirety, but that's a 17.6 kilometer detectability range by sea. If it doesn't bother you, that's okay. You could still have this, and then you have incoming fire alerts. I'm trying to rank if I would say this is the number 2 or number 3 build. Yeah, I don't know how much I recommend just completely forsaking your concealment. But you getting greater alpha strike. So it depends on, are you going for the damage, or are you wanting to be a bit sneaky and getting closer in towards enemies and doing being a bit more sneaky in terms of your positioning? Or are you okay forsaking concealment so that you can be this really greedy damage giver, right? So there's that one. You could do that. The other thing, let's see, if you didn't want survivability, you know, you don't want to do that. You'd still do something like this. Now there's something else we have to talk about as well for our commander, okay? And that is the consumable enhancement. So let's say you want to make your smoke generator, smoke generator lasts as long as possible. This does say it works for the exhaust smoke generator. You can add plus 10%. So if you're going for this build in the 5th slot, that's going to have augmented smoke generators. In the 3rd slot is going to have that smoke screen modification, or smoke generator modification 1, which is update 12.5, will work on the Italian cruisers, Italian destroyers, Italian battleships. And you're running, your longer lasting smoke. And then you're like, I'm greedy. I want as much smoke as humanly possible. I want the additional smoke charges. You could be running that. And I would say that is a very valid option to run here. So with that in mind, how would I say what to do here? Probably this. This is probably what I would say. Oh yeah, 9.9, I was right. Detectability after firing main guns and smoke. And that doesn't even matter if I take concealment system off too. It still 9.9. So you could run this. I could easily see myself running this just to have that longer smoke screen time. Or if you don't care about your concealment at all, then you can do this. So ultimately, as I really need to finish this video up, I really try to keep these underneath 30 minutes. I've just been talking too much. It really is up to you as a player and what you feel most drawn to. If you want that very standard build on the Venezia, I would say run this. This is a pretty standard build. I mean, most times you're firing sap, but it's been nice to have the gun feeder since it is an enhanced skill, particularly here with Luigi Sansonetti. And I talked about his skills yesterday. I'm not going to take the time to talk about it in this video. Well, briefly, main battery load time if you get Confederate, negative 15%. Kill a ship activates once per battle, plus 8% range. Hit enemy target 100 times, plus 10% on your consumable time. DCP, exhaust smoke generator, plane, heal. All those things. So that's why I think, maybe it is really worth considering something like that. But regardless, sorry. First build option, I would say this. If you need priority target, give up eye in the sky, take priority target. Second build option, because I would actually like to have both of those. That's a problem. This is difficult. I'm so sorry to be like hanging you here with this. It could be that, but I don't really want to do that. I'd rather have top grade gunner or be running a higher SAP alpha strike, something like this. But if you're gonna have the smoke all the time, you're gonna want eye in the sky, most likely is what I'm gonna say. So then maybe something like this. So it's just so difficult. It's so difficult in what you decide to take and what you decide to give up as a whole, right? It could even be something like this. With that all being said, I'm so sorry that this takes a little bit more time to talk about because of the upcoming changes. Kind of changes perhaps the playstyle of Venezia because of having that much longer action time on your smoke generator. And because of that, you're probably going to want to have access to eye in the sky more regularly. So you're going to want that cooldown time here with that skill mastered. And then if you want that also to spend some coal here, extend that action time of your spotter plane by plus 30%. So probably what I'm going to be taking steps towards for now. And I still have 4 points left. What do you see Flimsy master at this point in time? Well, because that skill's not here yet. It's probably what you'll see me master for the meantime. With still a point left, with the intention to take, with the unique upgrade to consumable enhancements, and probably I'm going to be greedy and go for that additional sap shell damage. So I'm so sorry that this video went on for as long as it did. I hope you don't mind and the reasons why, going more in depth and talking about this. So with that being said, if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.